What's up? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Hops Geek News, your home for comic books, movies, TV shows. Typically, we feature beer. Now, another great creative. We got a friend, man, a homie, a family member, if you will, back who hasn't been here for a little while, but you might have seen him on our MegaCon adventures. He's somebody who's come on before to talk a few of his books. He is an absolute pleasure friend to hang out with and just get to read his stories, more importantly, because he's doing great things. Trevor is back on the show. We will get to him in just a second, but you already know. I'm going to let you guys know real quick. I picked a themed beer for today, so you get to hear all about it. It's from Afterglow Brewing. It is called Brain Science, actually. It is a nice IPA, but I chose it. Number one, the artwork is cool. It reminded me of the really cool artwork from the comic book issues Rise that we're going to talk about today. Number two, Brain Science. Trevor's wicked smat, as I'll say, and then he loves to incorporate some of really cool stuff into his Rise comic that we're going to get to in a second. So, Lauren, I'm going to throw it to you real quick. What you got going on over there?
So I'm like terrible things get lost in my beer fridge sometimes. So I found one you sent me from Common Bond, who we've had on
Wow,
before, and it's a Southern Cross Pills. Well, I wanted something light and I wanted something small, and I'm drinking it in my Nerd Initiative
that's what she
glass.
said.
And I've paired it with one of the comics I reviewed today. Well, came out today, so this is in the past now. Helverine, absolutely loving this
Oh
comic
my
because
God.
is there a better common bond than beer and comics?
Okay, I'll
At the
give you
end of
that
the
one.
day?
You saved it. I'll give you that one. Boo her off the
Okay.
stage. The music's playing. Anyways,
Why is the
Trevor,
music
what's up,
playing?
my
Because it's
man's?
another
It's
Wolverine comic?
been a
It's
hot minute.
Dakin.
It is. I haven't read that yet, but yeah, dude, Trevor, it's been a minute. We last saw you at MegaCon last year.
Mm.
Didn't this year you've been traveling the world. So why don't you go ahead and fill the people in as to who you are, what you do, where you've been, maybe your social security number if you want, because that's already public info these days, anyways. And
Mm.
how's it going, dude?
I'm great. It's great to see you guys. It feels like it's been a lifetime, but
It doesn't
yeah,
at the same time, though. It almost feels like we
Yeah.
literally were hanging out, like, a
This
month ago
past
almost.
MegaCon, not
Yeah,
over a
it
year
doesn't
ago.
feel it feels like a long time, but it doesn't feel like a long time, and I like this, just to the friendship that we've made, man.
oh man, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of months. I mean, end of 2024 was traveling all throughout Europe, vandalizing people's comic books, and
Hell yeah.
early January, got to be a guest at Fan Expo in New Orleans and announce a new project. Since then, just kind of as I've been home for the last month and a half, which has felt
That's
like
gonna be nice.
forever.
You're not one to be home, you're always on the go, so how is that?
It stresses me out. It stresses me out. I feel like when I'm home, I'm not really moving fast enough, and I don't know. I think maybe I developed enough of a shorthand while I was on the road where I might even be more productive on the road now than I am when I'm home.
You've gotten your groove on the road.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just you're forced into like I either write now or I can't. And when I'm home, I mean, I'm forced to deal with more logistical elements, but it's also like I can I guess my brain feels more okay zoning out, and it just becomes a little bit harder to focus.
More distractions at home too.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So I do miss that, and it is maybe driving me a little insane. I'm absolutely itching to breathe that dry airport air and get back on the road. Which
You
will
miss
happen.
TSA.
Yeah, less them, maybe a little bit
You
less
miss the
them.
airport bars.
Yeah.
Yeah, the overly expensive airport bars
I
for
mean, who
sure.
doesn't want a $12
I
Bud
love
Light at
airport
8 in the morning?
because yeah, you
Mm,
can there's no rules, man. Like they're at home if you're frowned upon if you crack a beer open at 8 in the morning from the fridge, but at the airport, it's just normal.
that's
No, the
true.
kids are like, "Mom, you gotta take us to school first."
Yeah, I am rather invincible in an airport, aren't I? Uh, but yeah, no, just really trying to get ready for the rest of the year and get on top of some forward planning. It's looking like I'll be in Europe for about a month and a half at the end of the year, so it's
That's
going to
awesome.
be a really extensive extravaganza. I'll be signing at MCM in London and Thought Bubble and uh, popping out,
Dang.
popping out to Paris to sign at a few shops out there, and maybe something in Scotland. That remains
That's
to be
cool.
seen. So, Yeah, just
I need
kind
to
of
come work for you. That's what I need to do. I need to
well, on account of I am one of the few publishers that pay my artists on time, I don't know how much I have to give you, but
You pay
you
me in
know,
experiences. That's all I need. There we
dude,
go.
yeah, I will give
Friendship
you.
and Guinness.
I can give you so much
Ooh.
friendship. It's money less so.
Maybe
Friendship.
depending how long we're gone, I miss my wife. Maybe a little snuggle at night. Well, no, who knows?
Listen, I am a great big spoon.
There you go. I prefer the little spoon as it is. But, speaking of a lot of this stuff, and you've been home, we're going to talk Rise, but I
Mm.
think I want to dive into a little bit of your new project that you announced.
Yeah,
What can you tell us about this new project, man? Because I know you crush it in the superhero realm, but you got
yeah.
some other good stuff coming up, and I know it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm very excited to get this project off the ground. It's a supernatural horror book that is emphatically uh, the most related to like my Catholic upbringing. I'm not Catholic anymore, but I was raised in a Portuguese Catholic house, so um, as you can imagine, there's a lot of baggage there.
Yeah.
Uh, and you know, it's funny. Like I was never a big horror guy growing up. I'd gotten solicited to pitch a horror project by Mike Martz at Mad Cave, and um, in the process of doing that, I had read and watched horror for like 2 months straight, and really like fell in love with the genre, and attached myself to I think a very specific subculture of horror, and it's like that existentialist horror. For me, um, especially in something like comics where you are a little bit more sensory deprived. The stuff that makes me terrified isn't that somebody's going to pop out behind a corner and stab me to death. It's the stuff that makes you afraid to wake up the next morning and deal with it as you see it in your everyday life. And so Heavy is a story that questions who really bears the burden of guilt. It is kind of I guess the quickest way to explain it is that it's like when the collective weight of the world reaches a fever pitch, the global population begins to vanish, and in this chaos, the latchkey black sheep of the family, Atlas, begins to investigate the disappearance of the little brother he'd abandoned into the foster care system some 16 years ago. And as his search brings him closer to what he left behind, Atlas is kind of forced to reconnect with his memories in order to find a way to counteract this mysterious force that now preys on the guilt of his past.
Dang.
Um, so it's super super emotional, very raw.
Very
Um,
heavy. I see where you got the name.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I've actually decided to exclusively convert to one word titles after the first two projects. So here we are. And yeah, it's something that matters a lot to me. And I mean, I have had the fortune of having a couple of people that I've looked up to for a very long time read the first script, and one of them in particular is thinks that this is the best thing I've ever written, and it's someone
Ooh.
who.
And that's saying something because you've done some really good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. And it means a lot because it's someone I have so much reverence for that I have a character they created tattooed on my body. So
Oh wow, that's awesome.
yeah, it means the world, and I'm very excited for people to read this book. It's something else.
I always love, like you said, when it comes to horror, I feel as though it's easy to do kind of jump scares, things like that. That never has gotten me either. I don't mind those. Don't
I
get
get
me
jump
wrong.
scares get me.
Right. Sure,
It
it's
happens in
when
my
you
house every day. My husband scares me. He just
you're
walks in the
afraid of
kitchen. I'm
things you
like, oh my
can't
God, where'd
see.
you come from?
Mhm.
But that existential dread, like you talked about, the feeling of guilt. It's that stuff that weighs down on you, the stuff that you can't necessarily see, you can't
Or you
combat
can't
almost.
fix. Like you wish
Yeah,
you could just go back in time and change it, and you can't.
to me that is what horror kind of really should be, and that's the more horrifying stuff. And I really love especially religion, right, and how it shapes you, and everybody takes something different from religion, because I grew up in a similar Catholic household.
Mm.
And it is honestly, Catholicism is always one of the most creepy forms of Christianity to me, period, anyway. So it's
Yeah.
interesting
I
to see
had to
your
memorize
take
a
on
lot
it.
of stuff, and it's like exercise. I went to a Catholic church once as a kid. I grew up non-denominational Christian,
Mm.
and I was like, "Why are they standing? Oh my God, they're sitting. We're standing. We're on our knees. You guys all know these words to all these prayers? It's a lot of
Yeah.
work."
Yeah.
It's very ritualistic and bears a
Yeah,
lot of structure upon people, a lot of very hard moral lines. And I
when
think,
most things are gray.
yeah, and I think, you know, when it came to how that influenced the book, it really comes down to like I have always been a slave to my own guilt, and uh it it
Spoken like a
will
true Catholic.
it kind of, yeah, it's like as much as I ran away from Catholicism by the time I was a teenager, but
Did you
there
start beating up criminals in Hell's Kitchen?
I
oh
was gonna say
man,
no. He has his eyesight.
no, I'm a little bit too thick to do what you have. But you know, I think as the religion sort of pertains to that, like I was just taught to feel bad about every little misstep, and even if it wasn't really a misstep, I would feel bad about it, just like eat me out from the inside, and I'm like, am I a horrible person because I feel this guilt all the time? Is it the guilt that makes me bad? And as I've gotten older, I kind of realized that actually the worst people on the face of the planet don't feel guilty about anything. They're
Nor
guilty
do
of
they
being
question if
wrong.
they're good people.
Right. They're
Yeah.
not asking those questions. And
No.
I find that the best of us are the ones that are so deeply mired in that guilt, and uh so many great people become shackled and destroyed by it, but they're the ones most capable of change. And that's really where this story comes from, is me wrestling with that, and just telling a story about one brother getting to know the little brother he left behind through their shared trauma. um
Mhm.
And, yeah, I mean, this is maybe the most personal of my stories yet, and I think it is just the most raw story I've gotten to tell so far.
Well, what a beautiful way to be able to express those emotions. So how many issues do you expect? Do you have it mapped out from beginning to end?
I mean, I know where the story goes. I think I'm really, really bad at being one of those guys who looks at the shape of the story and goes, "This is exactly how long it's gonna be."
Right, you gotta
I
let
have
it develop
I
organically.
I have never been right. I have absolutely never been right, like, at the onset, and I'm trying to find that balance now in my career where I look at a story and, have an idea, but I don't wanna be a slave to
Well, because
structure.
yeah, I was gonna say, then you feel like now you have to stay within those confines, and I know
Mm.
for me personally, that's just gonna make me wanna do the opposite.
And I
So,
think
Right, it can be counterproductive.
a lot of stories lose their poignancy when,
yeah.
you know, they feel like they can only fulfill so much space. And I think sometimes a story will tell you how much space it needs. Now, like, your instincts as to, you know, when that is going to be the case or not, have to be developed. But I think, you know, I've done that part enough times where I think some of my better stories are the ones where I was like, "Oh, this actually needs a lot more than I thought it did in order to be its best self," right? Like Minutes to Midnight was supposed to have 6 stories and it had 4 because 2 of them doubled in size. And those 2
Mhm.
stories ended up being like 2 of the most critically successful things I've ever done. You know what I mean? Like Reflections and Other Little Devils was gonna end on the page where it's like a low angle shot and you see his ex-wife's legs like hanging over the countertop, and I was just gonna leave it there. Or like Time Fleeting War Immortal was gonna end with the 2 old men shitting on each other on the internet. And actually the best part about that story is everything that comes after that.
Yeah.
So it's really, actually, it kind of stresses me out a lot because I am really petrified that I develop such a lack of structure where I end up overstaying the welcome of a story and become a little aimless. But so far, the instinct of letting the story as I tell it inform me as to its shape has not s-
Gotta
steered me.
trust your gut sometimes, man, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, yeah, it's a fine line, you know, like, I don't wanna become too complacent
Yeah.
about it, but there is something sort of, to be said about just letting the story talk and letting it let you know. But as far as that's concerned, I think Heavy. I'm looking at probably 6+ issues.
Oh,
I
very
think it's
cool.
going to be a little bit longer. Um, I know it's a bit of range. I'm thinking like 6 to 9, just because, working in that genre, I need to develop so much more control over my audience, which is hard in comics, right? I cannot physically change how fast you read the book. I can
Right.
try and manipulate you, but that takes time to kind of develop a reader's trust. And I want this story being what it is genre-wise and sort of subject matter and topic-wise. I really want the emotional moments to stick and land. And I think that takes time, uh, as far as development. And I think one of my failings as a writer early in my career was feeling so scared that I wasn't being economical with my pacing. And that did me some good early on in my career, but I also look at some moments where I wish I had the wherewithal to let something breathe, and I didn't. And so I'm kind of in that mood now with this project in particular where I really wanna give myself the opportunity to let certain moments breathe and, leave a lasting impact.
That I mean, it's all about the lasting impact, right? And how you leave your readers, especially in a story as personal as this.
Mm.
And in horror too, a big thing in horror is how you leave your audience, that unsettling feeling and things like that. So I think it works definitely for this, not painting yourself into that box, not putting yourself in that corner, letting it come out. And it's got to be therapeutic for you at the same time writing some of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like, for every project, there's so much of myself that is kind of embedded within the cast members, and sometimes it's a matter of putting 2 qualities of myself in 2 characters that are, at sort of diametrically opposing ends, like, and this story has so much of that. It the lead character, I think in some ways is, like, the most indicative of me as an adult.
Okay.
And he is a piece of shit. And so,
Thinks highly of
um
himself, everybody.
yes, but there are a lot of valuable qualities, but I think this is kinda me exploring the most immediate questions that I have about myself, and about the world around me and, sort of its values. And I'm very excited. I think some of the writing is just, like, the sharpest and, most effective that
Mhm.
I've been able to pen, and, it's just it's as I have with everything else in my career, it's sort of a first for me in a new genre, which keeps me very excited and very, hmm, it just keeps me interested in maintaining the quality of the story.
Yeah. I mean,
Awesome.
perfect sense too. And that's
Yeah.
that feeling of something new and fresh, and kind of speaking of guilt and new and fresh, we can switch on over to Rise, which is a
That was
Kickstarter
a
that you have
good
going on
segue.
right now. And this deals with a lot of guilt too at the same time. In particular, issue two that we read, issue three's out there on Kickstarter. Issue four is going to be getting going this May. And for anybody who hasn't read it yet, why don't you give your quick one line pitch and then let's kind of dive into this because
Mm.
Lauren and I read issue two
We read
and
issue
there's
1 a while ago, which
we
ended on
yes,
a very happy note. So we read
issue
issue
two
2
is
today.
very 180 in a guilt-ridden way, which I thought was really cool. The way you humanize him as a superhero a lot. So let's
Yeah.
dive into this.
I mean, yeah, the Rise is what if a real person was a superhero? Like, that's and whose powers are contingent upon feeling good to do good. His abilities scale with the spikes of dopamine in his blood, and, dopamine spikes can occur due to a number of different stimuli. Dopamine can plummet due to a number of different things. And it's me using that framework to explore the performative nature of masculinity, especially in our society, and begin to tap into the perils of the male ego through a man whose, you know, masculinity, his agency, is 100% contingent upon the way he feels. And I think that's endemic of most people in our society. Like, this is just not, it's told through a man's lens, but it's so much about, you know, the idea that oftentimes we are asked to do our best when we feel our worst.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I explore that at its highest level? Well, this guy being able to do his best when he feels his worst can be the difference between life or death for millions of people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so not only is he dealing with his internal sort of response to performing or not performing, but there are stakes. And
Yeah.
that is a massive emotional and psychological stressor. Um, so yeah, this is a story that I said I would never tell, in that it's an independent superhero project. And I think it existing speaks so much to how necessary it was that I tell the story in the way it is, because despite my own reservations, I had no other way that I felt like this could be packaged. And I mean, I've also been very fortunate to have an incredible collaborator in Ryan Best, who captures the the dynamics of big superhero action, but at the end of the day is going to sell you on these characters existing and having real feelings in this two-dimensional space. Like, they're people, they're emotional entities. And that I find is maybe the most important visual element to this story.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lauren.
Well, and I think what's interesting too is, when we hear if superheroes are real, a lot of our minds nowadays go to the boys.
Yeah,
But that's
grit.
such an extreme example. They're all either most of them are very evil and very money driven, whereas I don't think that's fully realistic. Would there be a Homelander out there? Based on current events, I would say yes. However, I feel like it's more likely that you would have somebody like this who's just like struggling to want to do good and like, can still hear those negative thoughts and those negative thoughts, draining him, and who is still human. And like you definitely found a unique spin on a superhero, because yeah, we've heard every superhero story we thought, but now, I love that we're getting into this world where it's not just, Superman good, Lex Luthor bad.
Mm.
Yeah.
And those stories have become a little more gray over the years, but this is truly a good human who is still human, who still messes up. Like, we're all flawed. And so it's really and truly, I feel like you captured it. And I don't want to say, it's up to you if you want to say like how this one started, that I like literally like I had to go back. I'm like, wait, didn't it end like happy? It wasn't like
Yeah.
this. And like, because I remembered the ending where there was a proposal and all that. So I had to go back and double check to make sure I didn't remember that incorrectly.
Yeah, no, go for it. I mean, issue 2's been out now for quite a few months.
But and you have 3 is in the Kickstarter right now.
Yeah, so late pledge is available on the Kickstarter. So the traditional form of the Kickstarter is done, but we've left a couple of items up and available for a late pledge before we go to print. So I always encourage people check it out. You can still grab some bundles for catching up both digitally and physically. These are 40-page issues. They're quite large, and the print quality is very,
You get
very
your money's worth, I can say, especially from Ryan's, his artwork too is
Yeah, the artwork's beautiful.
phenomenal. You feel as though you can feel the wind, blowing the cape, for example, and then it's
A
very
couple little
humanized.
spicy scenes
I
too.
mean, you're talking about the closest. I mean, he's a human at the end of the day, and humans have needs.
Mm.
Only he succumbs to more of the, you know, not for nothing. Our hero of the story finds himself cheating on his wife,
Ah,
essentially, and
spoilers.
so I think bringing that aspect into something is there's a very big temptation factor. Like, what if you are the world's Superman? You both have to hear people criticizing you, but then at the end of the day, you are a superhero. So there are obviously going to be temptations out there.
Mm.
And
He's his
only
worst critic.
he's his own worst critic, but at the same time, he also chooses the temptation that is hurting somebody that he's tried to save at one point. And so I think even putting that layer on it. So this story's got layer
Well, and
on layer on
you get
layer.
flashbacks and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the way you did that was extremely clever with issue 2, and I can't recommend those since they've been out for people. And issue 4, you're getting ready to May, is that right?
So yeah, so issue 3 should be in readers' hands sometime in May. Issue 4 will be kickstarting probably in June.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, like issue 3, I mean, if you guys happen to poke onto the Kickstarter, I mean, you see right off the bat, like Ryan is doing the best work of his career by a landslide. Like the art in issue 2, when he takes over colors, is great. What he does in issue 1 is great. What he's doing right now, like it's some of the best art in superhero comics. Like I don't care if you're indie or big two or whatever.
Mhm.
Like
No,
it's
legit. It really is
Yeah,
some
no,
of the best
it's
artwork
up there,
I've
yeah.
seen, and whether you're pro, whether you're indie, whether you're DC, doesn't matter what
Yeah,
company.
X-Men, anything, yeah.
This literally has some of the most stunning artwork that I've seen in a comic book.
I would put what he's doing up against almost anybody. Like I don't care how big of the name, I don't care how big the reputation, and he's doing it while he's just not pulling punches on any form. I mean, like we're taking big compositional swings. You know, you look at
Yeah,
the first art page for issue 3 on the Kickstarter. You know what I mean? The way we're using like the shape of the eye as John's awakening from his coma after spoilers being exploded. Um,
by a nuke.
yeah, by an actual hydrogen bomb. Or, you know, there's another like double page spread where he's kind of he's putting himself in a position to go back out on the street before he's really ready, and you sort of have this tapestry uh of intrusive thoughts woven throughout the folds of his cape as he overlooks the city. I mean, Ryan is really finding that rare sweet spot between being unapologetically a superhero book while also being like incredibly dramatic and emotional. And also like his cover work has just been blowing me out of the water. I mean, the wraparound cover he did for 2 went literally went viral. The wraparound cover he did for 3 is incredible, and the one he's going to be doing for 4, I think could be the best one yet.
Mhm.
Um, I can't say enough about the collaboration that I have with him. It is rare, like, to have that type of, connection with somebody, and it's only getting stronger. When I think about scripting future issues, I'm like, I'm willing to really push the boundaries, and I think that's part of where we got such great compositions in issue 3, and it's only getting better. Like,
Mhm.
he steps up to every like, I legitimately will have ideas for compositions, and I'll say, "If this is fucking stupid, you let me know." But, like, I think we can do this, and he not a single one of those ideas that I thought could potentially be catastrophically idiotic did he look at and say no. He went for it, and he killed it. Um So yeah, I mean, just for the art alone, I mean, you're looking at you're looking at a rising star. Like he's gonna be massive. Um,
I could say that about both of you too. Honestly, the way you just your relationship, the way you guys have built and found your groove in working together so, seamlessly at this point. His art matches the words that you're writing in the script. Like the heaviness, the real life nature to it, the way you're able to connect with the first world mortal problems that he's having within this story. I would say the same thing about you without a doubt. I mean, in the next 5 years, if the two of you aren't, doing something at some massive level, I'd be very shocked just because it's been a while since a superhero comic has been able to move me in like a oh shit kind of manner and catch you off guard like that, and then also at the same time you feel bad for this guy who kind of has it all, and really that's hard to convey in a story like this, but you've done it. You
right.
really have. And
Thank
so
you.
I fully believe that the two of you have something here that should be somebody's got to pick up the phone and be like, hey, let's get this going right now. I will die on that hill because it's very unique, it's very refreshing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I didn't want to do this book, and the fact that I'm doing it means we've got to make it ours. And that's been such a major priority, making sort of the tropes of the genre beholden to our story rather than making the story beholden to tropes of the genre.
Yeah.
And if I find something unnecessary, I'll eschew it completely, right? Like John doesn't have a secret identity. He doesn't get a name until halfway through issue 2.
Which
Yeah.
was a
It's
hilarious
like,
joke.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I just don't find that stuff necessary to his story. And the stuff I do find necessary, I'm trying to make it ours, right? Like the saves, like I want them to feel, first of all of the major saves are visually symbolic of his internal struggle, right? Like you don't know it's happening yet, but like when he has to save a building from collapsing and then
Yeah.
he
That's the
makes
best
a
of it.
decision that risks the collapse of his marriage, or as he's dealing with the guilt of his marriage, he then has to contain the explosion of an atom bomb because his life is actually blowing up. Just trying to maintain an emotionality to the things that used to be throwaway or considered sort of throwaway elements or just action for action's sake. Like, I don't know. I want it all to speak to his narrative and sort of his struggle. Um,
Mhm.
and we're doing that in big form in the next couple of issues, especially. I mean, I'm writing issue 5 right now, and it's getting emotional for sure.
That's
And
yeah. Go ahead, Lauren.
do you know how many issues this one will go?
6.
6. Okay.
Oh man, we're getting
But
so
it
we're at that
started at
crucial point.
3, and then I
Yeah.
said 5, and now it's 6, but it's gonna go
So
6.
we'll see what happens. But it's exciting because we're about, as issue 3 is finishing its Kickstarter, getting ready to go to print come May. We're about halfway there, and
Mhm.
I can only imagine where it's going. I can't imagine where it's going to end.
That's a
I'm
better
more
response, yeah.
saying like just the way it really truly feels like you're getting to that anticipation on a roller coaster, ready to just free fall and feel that excitement, that joy, but at the same time fear is kind of
Mhm.
the feelings I'm getting with this.
Yeah, the end of this book, it really kind of speaks to some of the sensibilities that I ended the Helix project with, in
Mm,
that I don't think anyone's gonna see it coming. And it is aggressively not what this character wants, but it's what this character needs.
Mm.
Um,
ooh,
and
foreshadowing.
yeah, it's very it's not cynical, but it's not what you're expecting from a superhero book.
Okay.
It's not what you're expecting from,
And that's
you
what
know,
people want. That's what's going to
fantasy.
get the people going, that
Yeah.
unexpectedness.
I love when the trope doesn't happen and we
Yeah.
didn't see it coming.
I love being fooled.
That's the goal, and I think especially as you read from 2 and 3 and 4, uh, it just adds up. Like the
Yeah.
ending, it feels like this is the only ending I can give you without making you feel cheated. Um,
Mm.
and that's what makes me feel so good about it. I feel so confident, which I think is tough because endings, like some of my favorite writers are not good at endings. And
Endings can be the hardest thing
Mm.
to land, truly is.
It can make
yeah,
or break if somebody goes back to
Yeah.
the story
Game of
or
Thrones.
yeah,
recommends it, yeah.
yeah. And so for me, that's been a major concern of mine. Like I think whether it's Helix, I mean the ending of the Helix project, I think is by far the best part. Um, I think the end of most of the stories in Minutes to Midnight are the best parts of those stories. So I'm very focused on making sure that the last impression is impactful. Um,
Right.
and yeah, Rise is emotionally like, it's like, wow, it just makes you think a lot about stereotypes in these types of stories, and
Yeah.
um, why I think in this one it was so necessary to dismantle.
Yeah. For sure. And so as we kind of start to wrap up here, I know that we've got the end of the year. You said you're going to Europe. What do you have going on in between? And then where can people find you?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure this goes out after that, but I'll be at the Indie Comics Creator Con in my home state this weekend. But April, I will be guest at the Calgary Expo. It's a fan expo show in Western Canada. It's one of my favorites.
Calgary,
Um,
nice.
I think in May I might be a guest at Fan Expo Philly. Just waiting to hear back from them, because I'm kind of now at a stage where I'm trying to get more of the guest opportunities than like the Artist Alley opportunities.
Yeah.
You realize that with a lot of these pop culture shows, people don't really look for comics people in Artist Alley anymore, which is
It's
a really,
No.
interesting. Yeah.
like, I mean, when I first met you guys like walked past me like 4
Well,
times.
because
Yeah.
MegaCon, the way they
We
had
were
Artist
looking for
Alley was
you.
just like we were actually, yeah, we were literally looking for you at the same
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
which is even
Yeah,
crazier.
so I mean, I just think it unfortunately speaks to a shift in the industry. So, um, waiting to hear back on that. June I'll be at Heroes Con. July I'll be in San Diego. August,
Ooh,
Terrificon,
Matt
my
might be in San Diego.
yeah, San Diego's fun. I did it for the first time last year, and it was
That should be,
bonkers.
yeah.
Yeah, one of those shows where it's like, if you're not bringing like liquid IV, what are you doing? Um, but yeah, so August Terrificon. September, I might be in Edmonton, Canada, and then October, New York at the beginning of the month, and then I fly out to London at the end of the month, and I will be in the UK from end of October to like early December.
Oh
That's
wow.
awesome, man.
You'll
That
be
is
there
awesome.
when the Christmas decor goes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love
Ooh.
like the festive season in the UK. I mean, really in Europe, but in the UK, I think it's pretty
It's
cool.
a good
It's
time to be there.
Yeah, really, really beautiful. I've really just enjoyed the last 2 years of being able to do stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
meeting a lot of different people, experiencing life in a different way, and it's like, I mean, the first year it was great, but a very uncomfortable experience because I'm doing it alone. I'd never been to any of these places, but returning, it's like, oh, now I can just focus on the cool stuff. Like
Yeah.
there's
Right.
nothing to be scared of because it's not. There's enough new to experience without feeling like lost in it.
Sure.
And yeah, it just makes me very excited to go back. Obviously also with everything going on in the US, I'm not terribly mad about not being in it
Yeah,
for
no kidding. Yeah, no kidding.
so
Be a good time to
yeah.
stay over there. Just move over there, get dual, go get citizenship and you're good.
Yeah, I actually, funnily enough, I had a conversation with a friend of mine while I was in London, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a Portuguese citizen. I should probably apply for my EU passport. Like that would
Yeah.
just be great for me."
There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, as far as the comic stuff goes, just I'm excited to get Heavy off the ground and be releasing issues of Heavy and Rise in between one another. And I'm looking. Well, we are in the early steps of publishing like an art book for
Ooh,
Ryan. So like
Oh,
nice.
that's
Watch
cool.
That's
Press,
awesome.
yeah, producing like a Ryan Best artwork, like a proper art book, and I'm hoping we'll be able to kickstart that by the end of the year because he's got like a little art book with like old stuff, but I mean, he's taken such a massive step forward in the last couple years, and I
Hmm.
think obviously I have the resources and the experience to make sure that we can produce a really beautiful product.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be another fun thing to look out for.
Dude, you got so much going on, man. And it's always a good time getting to chat with you. I can't wait to do it again already.
Same.
Lauren, do you have any final thoughts, questions, any of that before we wrap up?
No, just everybody knows all the links are in the show notes. Thanks to Matt, and head to Kickstarter and head to
And
those
if they're
socials.
not, then thanks, Lauren. No, I'm just kidding.
Now
If they're
you
not,
have
then
to,
it's
'cause
my
I
fault.
said it. They
Yeah.
always are. He does a good job with it.
I do
But
my
yeah.
best. We try our best. But seriously, dude, thank you so much. Everybody needs to be picking up these books. If Trevor's name's attached, if Ryan's name's attached, you're in for a good time. Either if it's both of them, if it's one of them, it's worth opening up the pages and checking them out. So make sure you guys go do that. Trevor, as always, man, it's a pleasure. We love you and we can't wait to talk to you again.
Oh man, it's been such a joy being back and reconnecting with you guys. So thank you for opening the space.
Always, dude. Everybody else, go subscribe, like, share, follow. And you know what? This will probably be out Friday. So go see this man out there at the Indiana Comic Con. And if not, then you messed up. I don't know what to tell you. But go see him. We'll see everybody next time. Cheers.